Hey, free-to-play gang, welcome back to another video. We are going to take a look at patch 3.2.1. We finally have 3.2.1. Okay, anyway, with that out of the way. So we're going to start off with the new Espers, followed by the rest of the updates. So let's take a look at Ethan, who is a 5-star flow-type support Esper, endowed with control and attack abilities. So ability 1, Chaos Sound, attacks an enemy, has a chance of reducing AP. If the enemy is afflicted with Panic Gaze, you inflict stun. And if Ethan has Magic Tune, all effects from this attack cannot be resisted. So there is one more new debuff, and there is one more new buff as well. The debuff is going to be Panic Gaze, and the new buff is going to be Magic Tune. So I'm not too sure whether are these silver rimmed or are they just normal debuffs and just normal buffs. So that is something that we need to take note of. Ability 2, Joyful Delight, attacks all enemies multiple times. Now each hit has a chance of inflicting defense down, and each hit inflicts panic gaze on its target, causing the target different negative effects based on the type of action the target takes. This thing kind of complicates things a little bit, but from what I understand, it's not like many different types of effects. But we'll get into that as well. Now, ability 3, Enchanting Song, grants all allies Magic Tune and immunity. Now, allies with Magic Tune get their crit rate, crit damage, crit resist boosted by a certain percentage, and received a fixed value of speed as well. So they have 4 different buffs jam-packed into one single buff. So I'm not sure just how powerful this buff is, so it's something that we need to clarify as well. Now, after Ascension, if Ethan has Magic Tune when enemies receive an AP boost, it will also grant Ethan a certain percentage of the same effect, which I think is going to be 50%. I'm going to explain why I believe this is the case. So the thing is, how Ethan works, right, is when he has Magic Tune at the start, if the enemies buff their AP, Ethan is actually going to gain some AP as well. So this is one very good way for you to counter the speed meta. And unfortunately, they introduced this character after the speed meta is quite destroyed. It's quite obliterated. I mean, it still works, but for the most part, it doesn't work anymore. And the sad part is they introduced this Esper after introducing the HP boost, which deters people from using speed cleaves. So this is a little bit unfortunate. Well, coming from the developer's point of view at least, I feel like they should have introduced this character much sooner. Now, this is what Panic Gaze does. So when the carrier of Panic Gaze casts basic abilities, he will remove Magic Tune from the target. I'm not sure whether it is confirmed or not, because the enemy with that debuff is actually removing your buff. I'm not sure whether this is supposed to be the case, but then again, this kind of forces the enemy with the Panic Gaze debuff to only use basic abilities, which could be intentional. Now, this won't miss and cannot be resisted, okay? And deals true damage to the caster, which is essentially whoever had Panic Gaze, based on the carrier's max HP. So I'm not sure what the percentage here is, but it won't kill the carrier and the damage against bosses is reduced. So I'm gonna assume it's gonna be about maybe like 5%, or maybe at most 10%, I'm not sure. Now, if the carrier casts non-basic abilities instead, or they die, Panic Gaze will be removed from all of their allies, so all of the allies of the carrier, including the carrier himself, and their ability cooldowns will be extended as well. This cannot miss and cannot be resisted, so this is pretty cool. I'm not sure to what extent their ability cooldowns are being extended. Is it extended by 1 turn, or is it extended to full? I'm really not sure. But this really introduces a lot of mind game into the combat itself. So right now the enemy has to decide, should I use my basic ability to get rid of enemy's Magic Tune, but then I take damage, right? Or should I use my own active skill, but if by doing so, that's going to increase the cooldown of my entire team. So there's quite an interesting mechanism that is in play over here. But then again, yeah, this confuses the heck out of the Esper again. Not sure why they always have to introduce Espers with like a shit ton of stuff to talk about. Okay, but anyway, this is definitely going to be an R2 Esper, 100%. Take a look at the resonance here, right? So R1, the AP reduction is changed to 30%. We are not sure what it started off with, which is essentially his first skill, right? So it has a chance of reducing AP. It's probably like 20%. So it goes up to 30%, which is, I think it's not bad for controllers. Although this is not control, this is support, isn't it? Yeah, this is support. Okay, that's kind of weird. Now, R2, Enchanting Song, which is the third skill. Now, new effect. At the start of combat, all allies gain Magic Tune for 1 turn. Okay, so this is supposedly quite insane, isn't it? Because when your allies have Magic Tune, your team takes less crit damage, and your team has increased crit rate and crit damage as well, right? Something like that. Your team takes less critical hits. And of course, they have increased speed as well. So this is definitely going to be extremely good for speed cleaves, because you're going to have the extra speed at the start, which is insane. This is amazing. This is a must-have in a lot of teams. But please take note that you do not have the immunity, because the immunity is separate. If you take a look at that, right? Grants all allies Magic Tune and immunity. But the good thing about this is that right now Ethan has Magic Tune, which means that when the allies push their AP, if let's say they still start first, means your speed kind of sucks. So if they start first, they push their own AP, that's going to push Ethan's AP up as well. And then Ethan steals the turn, gives immunity to your entire team, and reapplies the Magic Tune or something like that, right? But of course, that's the interesting part, because if the enemies choose to increase their AP, they're actually going to extend the cooldowns of their... No, wait, no, that doesn't work, because they do not have the Panic Gaze debuff. Yeah, okay, so that's the important part. So the brokenness, right? The brokenness only happens when the enemies have panic gaze, which is probably not going to be the case unless the enemy start off with an AP push and Ethan somehow steals the turn. So Ethan has to be super fast to steal the turn, and then use his second skill to inflict panic gaze on the entire enemy's lineup. And then when the enemies take a turn to use their active skills, they are going to extend the cooldowns of the entire team. Okay, wait. Yeah, okay, that's actually super freaking broken. Yeah. So him being at R2 is actually very crazy. This is not just good against speed clips, this is also really good against like your typical tanky setups right now. This is actually very good. This counters a lot of tanky comps, even counters Jin-Hee Yao comps as well. So yeah, him being at R2 is actually quite broken, I think. Now R4, rock solid, damage taken minus 20%. This is like whatever, right? But look at his R6, dude. Enchanting Song. Whenever the enemy receives AP boost effects, all allies, instead of Ethan, this is the big change, instead of himself, gain 50% of the same effect. Now this is the reason why I think Ethan gains 50% of the AP that enemies gain. So this is an interesting change because now Ethan doesn't gain the AP push, which means that he's not going to be able to use his second skill so effectively anymore as compared to what he's able to do at his R2 state, which is he steals the turn and he drops the second skill instantly, right? To land all the panic gazes. I think that's like the main thing for him. So obviously this is going to be extremely broken, right? Because all your allies are going to gain AP when enemies gain AP. So this changes a lot against all those AP pushing comps. Now let's take a look at the two new 4-star Espers. We're going to start off with the Japanese Koharu Ame-no-Uzume. So she's a 4-star Inferno and she's an offensive support Esper who can apply both buffs and debuffs. And I kind of like her kit. So ability 1, Belto, I don't like this kit. I don't like this skill. Attacks an enemy, dispels debuffs on herself, gains recovery. This is really good against APEP, obviously. You're going to dispel the poisons on yourself and then you give yourself recovery afterwards. Perfect, right? But apart from that, it's kind of useless. Ability Pirouette inflicts disease and sear. Again, another anti-APEP skill. After Ascension, if Koharu has Kagura Dance, which is some buff that she's going to get as well, there's more buffs, heals all allies afterwards. Now ability 3, this is where she gets Kagura Dance, attacks all enemies, inflicts attack down, which is great against APEP, grants all allies Kagura Dance, increasing ally damage dealt and ally healing received. But furthermore to that, at her R6 state, we're actually going to jump straight to her R6. Her Prayer Dance, which is her third skill, has an additional 50% chance of inflicting defense down for 2 turns, which cannot be resisted. So I'm assuming that this only hits once, but if this multi-hits, this is actually quite insane. So you have a 50% chance, which is not great. And you already know what I'm going to say. I only like defense downs, which is 100%. But the thing is, this cannot be resisted. But at the same time, this can miss. So depending on how you're using this skill, it can also potentially miss, and this might not take effect. But because it cannot be resisted, I can close one eye about the 50% proc chance here. So she's obviously going to be really good against APEP, which is quite nice, but I think for most starting players, APEP is not really a content that they need to strive towards ASAP. I don't even feel like APEP is that essential aside from achieving some crazy stuff in the endgame, right? Now next up we have Jin-Hee Dokkaebi, and she's a 4-star wind controller, and I don't really like her kit all that much, or rather I'm not too sure exactly what she's capable of. So Jin-Hee is a controller Esper that has solid control over a single target. So ability 1, Fastball, attacks an enemy and has a chance of inflicting stun. Ability 2, Round Slider, has a chance of stealing buffs and extending the target's ability cooldowns. Now after Ascension, if the target is inflicted with Dizzy Daze, it also absorbs all of their AP. And what is Dizzy Daze? This is a new debuff. So it comes from her third skill, Cyclone Screw, grants each ally a random attribute related buff. I'm not sure what this is, it isn't actually clarified at all, and inflicts Dizzy Daze while attacking the target. Now this debuff incapacitates the carrier, so this is a stun itself. And when the carrier takes a hit, it also increases Jin-Hee's AP. So this is a stun with additional effects that boost her own AP as well, which is not bad, right? But if you take a look at her R6, new effect, her Cyclone Screw, her third skill, dispels all buffs from the target before inflicting Dizzy Daze. So even if the enemy has immunity, you're going to strip all of it, you're going to apply this debuff. So it's kind of like a free stun that also increases her AP when your allies hit. I feel like this is a very hard to abuse mechanism because you're going to have to stun something that would not outspeed the rest of your team. So you're going to have to stun something that has already very low AP and very low speed so that your allies can then pummel that target so that you increase the AP of Jin-Hee. Which then again, if she gets a lot of AP, what is she going to do with that AP, right? Like, okay, she has a chance of stealing buffs and then extending the abilities cooldown, and then after that you absorb their AP, which is, again, why? Again, like, what's the point of you absorbing their AP? Yes, you are going to be controlling them, but then what are you going to do when you get your turn back? Attacks an enemy and has a chance of inflicting stun again. Like, I don't feel like there is a lot in her kit. I'm not so sure just yet. She's not good against bosses. Her typing is wind, which makes me want to think about whether is she good for Fafnir, and I don't think she's going to be good for Fafnir at all. So I'm actually very confused about where people might use Jin-Hee, maybe against like certain bosses, like let's say the Temporal Tower for example, but they're going to nerf Temporal Tower, so I don't think this is going to be necessary at all. But then again, this is a stun kit, right? So if it's a stun kit, it doesn't work against bosses as well. So like, then what's the point? What's the point? Alright, anyway, so let's move on with the rest of the content. I took too much time explaining the Espers. Alright, so they have added Knockout, and this is actually separate to Point War itself. We all thought that this was related to Point War in some sense, but actually that's not the case. It is a separate PvP content, and during Knockout, you can earn supply vouchers, which is your Point War currency, and once a season has been tallied, you will get season rewards based on your ranking. So your rewards are legendary Abilimon fragments, Nexus crystals, and supply vouchers as well. So this is going to be extra content for us to clear, which I'm not so sure whether I like it a lot, because there's going to be more things for us to press every single day. Yes, I know it charges once every 4 hours, which is great, because this is like extra content. But at the same time, it is going to be extra content that we have to partake in every single day. But at least you're able to skip the entire fight with the press of just one button, which is very nice. Now, combat is elimination based. So like what I talked about in the previous video, there is going to be 2 different teams that you're going to set up. And if your team 1 wins, you're going to move on to the next fight. And of course, you're going to recover a little bit of your HP and some ability cooldowns as well. So it's like moving on from one wave to another wave, something like that, which I think is quite interesting. So this definitely tests your comp synergy very extensively. So I think maybe starting off with like a tanky setup is going to work really well because your cooldowns don't matter all that much. And then your second team, after let's say your tanky comp dies, you start off with a speed cleave or something like that. I think that finishes the round pretty well for you. So yeah, that might be like my initial strategy or something like that. I'm going to build around that strategy. Now, added Hell mode to story chapter 1 through chapter 4. Just 4 chapters. And this mode requires you to deploy 2 teams for battle. So this is going to extrapolate from the new function that the Knockout has introduced, which is having 2 different teams in one single fight. Now, big news. Okay, so they added quick battle to the point war, which I really like. So unlocks after players win 5 times each season, which I think each week, right? Now, once this is unlocked, players can use admission certificates to perform quick battle. It will just skip the entire fight, which is really good for me right now. I really need this. Okay, so now moving on to the new events, we have Hunter's Depot, which I talked about before. It is exactly whatever that we are expecting. However, reach max Hunter's level to get a time-limited avatar, but this only lasts for 30 days. I wonder why this is the case. I don't like this at all. This should last perpetually, okay? I don't like it when they add time-limited stuff to the game. This is not good. Okay, Celebration Collection. This is a new event that I didn't know was dropping, but anyway, it's essentially just another event shop. So during the event, you can challenge Ritual Miracle, Sonic Miracle, Desolate Land, Sonic Rift to collect Bazaar stamps, and you can exchange it for big prizes. So it's kind of like an event gacha basically, with a daily stamp limit of 80. So do take note that these events, they run at the same time as well. So it is definitely a good idea for you to consume all your stamina during the event itself so that you can benefit from both of these events both at once. So on one hand, you're getting Bazaar stamps, on the other hand, you're getting the Hunter Crest as well. So there are 2 new Echo events. The first is going to be Ethan, the second is going to be Ashley, and they are introducing Ashley as the first return Esper for the launch of Japanese, Korean, and traditional Chinese versions of Dislyte. So pretty cool. It's a good choice for them to introduce Ashley. I think she's like broken but not super broken, but you know, all these players from these countries, they're definitely going to wail for Ashley because Ashley is really strong. Now next up we have Warm Spring, which is just a login reward. You get a total of 30 summons, but it's just elemental records. But I would still recommend you to save these because you will not know whether in Anniversary itself, are they going to change how elemental records work or not. I kind of feel like they might tweak it in some sense, but then again, you know what, who knows, right? But it is still my recommendation for you to save all these resources. Okay, so now talking about novice support, I feel like new players, right, you should still just go for Jiangman, if not maybe Koharu, but in most cases I think Jiangman is still like the most broken choice here. Okay, now big changes to the Sentinel Hunt. Let's talk about this. So everything that I thought I knew about Sentinel Hunt is probably completely out of the window. So the thing is, this is going to be more of like your typical guild boss content, which is like your team, your entire club needs to defeat the boss. You can actually defeat the boss, so it's written here, right? For each level of the projection the club defeats, the projection will level up by 1. So this means that every single week, we're going to start off with, okay, let's say the first week, we're going to start off with level 1 of each of the 3 projections. And if your club is able to beat all 3 within the week, they will then level up to 2 each. Or if you're not able to defeat one of them, that guy is going to stay at that level for the next week as well. So this goes up and up and up, I think. And from the way this looks like, it's not competitive anymore, in a sense that you're not actually competing with the rest of the world with like the rewards and all that. That's not going to be the case anymore. You're just kind of like competing within yourselves to make sure that you guys can fight as hard as possible and beat as tough of a boss that you can beat as well. And the only global competition that exists in this content is actually just if you're like the top 100 club, you're just going to be awarded with the avatar frame, which is only valid for the week as well. So there is not a lot of competitiveness in this, which is, I think, is not bad because this allows a club to want to participate more because you guys are trying to fight for the ultrasonic chip, which then grants all members a chance to draw a reward as well. So of course this goes up to like 30,000 Nexus crystals, right? Something insane like that. So it's extremely important that your club is able to beat all the projections every single week so that you can obtain all of these ultrasonic cheats as well. So I kind of like the changes to the Sentinel Hunt over here. Very nice, very cool. Very old school, but also very engaging. Now, Holobattle optimizations, this is the part that is super weird because right now, Holobattles is They no longer grant club points or gold, and I thought they were going to compensate with something else, but it doesn't seem like there are any compensations at all. So me fighting with Eden is probably going to be the last embarrassing moment that I'll ever have in my life, because I don't think that, unless they add stuff to Holobattles, I don't think I will ever touch it ever again. I still hate you guys, man. Now, Ritual Miracle changes, added daily reward bonus times. So this is one thing that I am not sure whether I like it or not, depending on how they execute it, okay? Because this is the main catch: Chronos, APEP, and Fafnir. So what I understand from this is that players can get extra equipment, which is great. This is great, right? But the thing is, right now, we need to clear Chronos, APEP, and Fafnir each and every single day. Every single day, you need to do all 3 of these ritual bosses. And this would definitely throw me off my routine, because right now, I'm just grinding APEP or I'm grinding Chronos. I'm just focusing on these 2 content right now. And if you're telling me that I need to do all 3 just to maximize my rewards every single day, I feel like that's going to be a problem for a lot of players, especially in terms of like their daily grind. I know you can skip, right? You can use your memo chips to skip, but that still requires you to press a lot of buttons to switch screens, to flip to different bosses and all that. It really does add up a lot. So I hope this is not an and, I hope this is an or. Now, lower the difficulty of all temporal tower floors to give players a better experience with this game. I feel like this content is really quite manageable. I don't think people are complaining about this at all. So lower the enemy speed and HP across all floors, and lower the difficulty of some stage effects as well, which I think is probably going to be like the slow debuff, right? I think that's like the main one. Now they're also making Calamity Island a little bit easier, and change the enemy formation in Burning Pillar floor 135. This is actually the floor that I'm stuck at right now. There are 2 Jin-Hee on this floor and I hate it so much. Now, online union shop changes, this pertains to the tournament shop only. Now, the legendary Abilimon will be converted into legendary Abilimon fragments, but they're going to cost the same, I think. So 50 legendary Abilimon fragments will cost the same as 1 legendary Abilimon. So no changes over there. Or maybe this is going to help some players who are not able to get a full copy. Yeah, I think that's the reason why. Okay, so a bunch of you guys also mentioned the rewind event, or the Esper reset event that you guys saw in the previous video that I uploaded. Now, the thing is, with regards to the Esper rewind, I would say do not keep your hopes up, because they always have this for new players. They always have the rewind event. But the thing is, I'm not sure with them adding basic experiments, are they going to then return the new event to us again? Fingers crossed, I hope they do, but chances are it probably isn't going to come true at all. And then there are some other QOL changes here, but I guess you guys can read it for yourself. But anyway, that's about it for this content, at least the patch notes for 3.2.1. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. What do you think about the current update? Do you think it's going to be great? Do you think it's going to be a blast? Do you think it's going to suck? Let me know all of your thoughts as well. I'm very curious to know what you guys think. Anyway, that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed today's content. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. It really helps the channel, and subscribe for more Dislyte content. Now with that said, this has been Free to Play, and as always, I will see you in the next video.